Alright, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Yeah, we're back in the dark, you know, not my office space tonight. Um, because I'm cozy in here and I didn't really want to go out there. So, I know, stupid reason, but this is just a reading update and hopefully not a very long one because I want to get back to watching tornadoes. Um, what do I do with my spare time? Well, um, I have this hobby. Well, I have a lot of hobbies actually. One of my hobbies is watching storm chasers and the live storm coverage on YouTube. There's some really good ones, and you really learn a lot of science watching them, not just the sensationalism of watching tornadoes. You don't even really see tornadoes very often, but anyway, it's fun. It's totally the nerdy approach to weather too, because yeah. Anyway, there are a lot of storms going on tonight, mostly in Texas and Oklahoma, and I guess maybe Arkansas, but that might be later, depending on what the storms do. Anyway, so I'm gonna keep this short-ish. Yeah, right. Um, just basically what I've been reading and what I'm going to be reading. I'm probably going to end up leaving out quite a few because I don't have my list pulled up on Goodreads. Yeah. But I'll talk about the books I have stacked up around me, and how they fit into my reading plans and all that. I've read a few good books. Mostly I've been doing audiobooks. I've been getting ready for kittens. I have kittens coming, I guess, tomorrow at this point. So I had to get everything set up for the first litter for the season. So I've been doing a lot more audio and a lot less physical books, but I have finished a few physical books. I did finish They Thought They Were Free, The Germans, 1933 to 45. This one's one that was actually on my TBR video. Like, I actually finished a book that I said I was going to read on my TBR video. Oh my goodness. It was really good. This one I will be putting on the recommended shelf in our history area. Although I've already talked about it to at least one customer who sounded interested, so if he gets there before someone else does, then it probably already has a new person. It just has to get to the bookstore so it can find its person. I'm almost done with Civil Wars, A History and Ideas by David Armitage. This one I will probably finish tonight. I thought about going live for some reading sprints, but I don't know, with all the storms going on everywhere, we don't have one right here, but the internet's been less than ideally cooperative, which makes me think that there's probably some like space weather or something interfering. Because I know there was space weather enough that there was northern lights visible with a camera as far south as where I'm at. So that does interfere with things. So yeah. I'm happy with the sound working so I can make a video right now. Yeah. So I've more or less finished this one. I skipped to the last chapter and I'll read that and then I'll be done with it. Not quite a DNF, but like the first couple chapters were really interesting. And then we get to the chapters where we've established the unions. They've started maneuvering to get better rights for their workers. They're discovering all of the hassles and hurdles of labor unions and how do you deal with freeloaders, also known as people that didn't choose to join the union, because obviously if you are a union and you're getting perks for your people who are paying in to the union to keep it going. So let's say you got, the let's say a 35-hour work week. That's something that some unions would like for their industry right now. So let's say you got that negotiated, the 35-hour work week, 35 hours full time. Yay. Well, you've done all this work for that, for your union members who have paid the dues and paid the fees and whatever, and probably participated in any stop work shortage, work shortages, work stoppages, things like that. Anyway, words, yes. So the benefits that they've won or negotiated, that 35-hour work week, would apply to everybody, not just to the union members. Because it's really hard to apply things like that only to people that are in the union. So the people that are not in the union get the benefit anyway. So then why join the union and pay the dues and do all the strikes and slowdowns and all that stuff? So there's a chapter kind of on that, and on all the little groups that weren't really represented by the initial union, because non-white air traffic controllers were dealing with issues that were distinctly different from what everybody overall was dealing with, that they needed representation to deal with. And the overall union really didn't want to take on equality issues and discrimination issues. So they got another union because the black air traffic controllers needed a union. And then they had another one for women. Air traffic control was a very male field for a very long time. Well, very long relatively, because it's not a very old technology. But it was predominantly male from when it started through the wars, World War I, World War II, as the technology was developing and the techniques were developing. It was mostly military. However, and this is something that they do mention in the book, during wartime, it wasn't just men learning how to do air traffic control. It was also women, because that's a non-combat role that it turned out some women were really good at. So some of those women eventually became air traffic controllers outside the military. And it was interesting, some of the justifications that were tried for why women just aren't good at it. And then here's this one that's really good. Oh, and except for her, she's good. She's fine, but women can't do it except for her. That kind of thing. So they ended up with their own union, and then we get into the weeds, because once we've established some competing unions that are all working sort of for the rights of the workers, but they all are representing different subsets of workers with different issues, and they're kind of competing, because if you've just come off of a successful work stoppage for women's rights, you're not going to go back into a strike for something for a different union, because you just came out of a strike, and it's going to water down your bargaining position if you don't actually do the work now that you negotiated to do it. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into labor negotiation, labor dynamics that they find out the hard way by actually doing it. And you can just take that as kind of a summation of several chapters and save yourself the the reading. If you're really into that kind of stuff, there's a lot of details. It's probably interesting. I found it tedious. I don't know these people. I don't need to know every little maneuver that they do in every single thing in those chapters. Yeah. So anyway, it was pretty good other than that. I know I talk about the books that are annoying more than the books that are not for some reason. But that's because they're annoying and I have to talk about it. But it is interesting. I think the last chapter gets back into the point of the book, which was the strike during the Reagan era and its consequences. Because you kind of lose that in the bits that are all about the nitty-gritty labor relations stuff. So hopefully we get back into the storytelling. Yeah, it's probably 3.5 stars. I don't think it can recover to a 4-star at this point. And then I'm also trying to finish And Then All Hell Broke Loose by Richard Engel. This one should be a fast read. I just need to focus on it. So I will probably be doing, sprints by myself for the rest of the night, just not live because I don't trust my internet. I'm watching and checking out other people's sprints to see what formats I could do for silent sprints for kind of a low-key sprint option where, it's very much like what I did when the sound stopped working, but intentional. I don't know. Because it feels weird to not say anything if the technology's working. But it would certainly be a lot easier to just do sprints if it doesn't have to be, full-on performance level sprints. It's just maybe a, intro talking bit and then literally just, the timer or something. With the chats on the side. I don't know. I haven't seen very many for reading that do that, but I haven't looked that hard. Most of the ones I hang out in are more than that, which is why I feel so weird not doing more, I guess. But I like doing sprints just to be able to focus on specific books and get more done. So that will happen. Anyway, I did get a book today. Several people on one of the other sprints this week were talking about this book, Ruth Ozeki, The Book of Form and Emptiness. So I hadn't picked out my book for the week yet at the bookstore, so this is my book. So I have it now, and hopefully we'll get a buddy read going on this, or a group read at this point, since there's several people. But yeah, looks interesting. This one's also on several book lists. So it's on, I'm pretty sure it's on the Dublin Literary Award long list for some year. Don't know which year. And I'm pretty sure it also showed up on something like the Women's Prize long list for the same year as Dublin. Anyway, so it's already on my radar as something I need to read. So now I've got it. One book I will be starting maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, is Knut Hamsun, Growth of the Soil. I will probably pull it up as a LibriVox audiobook since it exists. But we'll see how the audiobook goes. I may end up just reading it because some of the LibriVox are a little bit interesting. The other books I'm working on, or will be working on very shortly. I brought home a copy of Killing Reagan. Not so much because I'm going to read it in print, although there's usually pictures, so it's nice to at least look at the pictures that go along with the text while listening to it. I don't know. Yeah, there are some pictures in here. So I'm guessing this is leading up to the attempted assassination of Reagan, which I vaguely remember being in the news. So, I was pretty young. But, yeah, this will be fun. And, ta-da, Killing the SS. I think this one was on my TBR video. It should have been, anyway. But I finished enough killing books that with these two, I'll be down to the ones that are harder to find, that don't show up at the bookstore as much. And last but not least, I have the audiobook now for this. So I will be trying out A Discovery of Witches. And I know this one's like book 2 or something, according to some people, but the cover says it's book 1. I'm going to go with that. Because, yeah, the cover thinks that it's book 1. And my sibling wants me to read it so that I can tell her what I thought of it. So, yeah. I will probably be doing this one closer to Tuesday or Wednesday at this point. Just, yeah. I have a few other things I have to finish first. And the audiobook that I'm currently listening to is The Overstory by Richard Powers, which is okay. It seems to be rather disjointed. So we had a whole first section about this oak tree, and now we're somewhere else. And at least in the audiobook, it was really hard to figure out whether we'd actually change to a new section or not. And yeah, I was very lost. And I don't know if that was just me or if it is a little bit vague at the transition points. Because I think we are in a new section now. Maybe a new tree? I don't know. I have a feeling trees feature in this book more than just the oak tree. Because the cover's got all sorts of trees, and the title kind of is trees. So, but beyond that, I'm trying not to know too much so I can just enjoy the book. But I am a little bit confused still. Not so much about the scenes. I mean, the scenes all make sense, but sticking it together in a novel, I thought I had some idea where it was going, and then maybe not. So at this point, I'm just listening and hoping I can figure out what we're doing. This is my second Richard Powers book, because the first one was the one that came out most recently. Anyway, the one that was an ARC that I got last year. It's not gonna come. Anyway, so that's kind of what I'm working on. I will talk numbers in my end of the month wrap up, because I'm not thinking in terms of numbers right now, so I'm just going to go with the vibe of enjoying the books and talking about the books. I have been going through the books on the checklist for the BookTube prize. Oh my goodness. Yeah, this had better be nearing the end of this video. My brain is shutting down. The BookTube prize. The checklist for the BookTube prize. I am not a judge still. But I've been going through them and finding the ones I can and listening to or reading them. So I think my favorite one from this week was Beautyland by Marie something Bertino. Yeah. Bertino, anyway. This one is a book that I had not expected much from, but then Eric Carl Anderson, in his prediction video for Pulitzer Prize, brought up this book as an interesting author and book that he wouldn't be surprised if it got more notice. So, yeah, it was more interesting because of that, and I put it ahead of some of the other ones I might have otherwise gone for first. And I'm kind of glad I did. It was different. I think the premise is kind of like in the autistic community, a lot of people talk about feeling like you're an alien. Like the world just is not made for you. And you're just sort of watching and trying to figure out how to fit in and what people are doing and why. And so in this book, the main character is doing that. But, and this isn't really a spoiler, because it's the very first scene, maybe she's an alien. So otherwise, it could be just a story about an autistic person and their experiences not ever quite fitting in, being quirky and interesting, and not a total failure in anything, but just not quite right. Yeah. So, I recommend it. It was really interesting. I think I know how it ended. But it's open to interpretation, especially on whether she's actually an alien or not. So check it out. Really interesting literary fiction. Not something I've read frequently. I might have read one or two that it reminded me of in parts, but pretty unusual book as far as I'm concerned. Maybe not a Pulitzer book, but it was good. So, anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, let it upload, and let you guys hear all about what I have been reading and will be reading and wanted to talk about. And I'll see everybody online somewhere, probably in somebody's sprints. And I'm going to get back to watching tornado coverage, because, of course. Bye, guys!